VHS is a broken mess of a game. For a lot of you, you don't know anything outside of the videos posted by a select handful of other people, because even now, VHS is a rather exclusive access game to even get into in the first place. However, I have had access to the beta for some time now, and it is not anything like what you have been told. The devs lied, and the community is still currently lying to you about it. VHS is not balanced. Currently, it's barely even playable, and most importantly, it's not remotely fun. Let's get the big one out of the way first. As of the writing of this video, there is a quote-unquote glitch that has persisted through several patches now of the Steam version of the beta. This glitch literally prevents you from queuing into a game at all, and in my personal experience, it has happened to me about 90% of the time, and I am far from the only one that has been having that experience. Some people can't even get as far as the menu before it crashes, disconnects, or just freezes entirely. That said, even if you manage to wish upon a shooting star during a blue moon and actually get into a game, you will be met with the most boring and one-sided video game you have ever played. This game doesn't even come close to a semblance of what could be called balance, even on paper, let alone in-game, and seeing as how most of you likely haven't even been able to play it as of yet, allow me to explain to you what you haven't been told. There are two roles, teen and monster, as many of you will already be aware. Let's first talk about the very basics. There are 4 teens, and the monster has 4 stigmas that have to be removed. The teens have a good variety of weapons to choose from, ranged and AoE. The monster has to rely on getting in close and using melee. Each monster also has 3 powers, each of which do various things. This is all stuff you've been told about. However, what you have not been told about is everything else. For starters, every teen weapon in the game has both a stun and silence mechanic. The second you are hit as monster by any weapon, your movement is slowed to a crawl, and you can't use any of your powers, meaning that one good hit is typically all it takes to be fatal for one of your stigmas, as once you are hit, you can't use any of your powers to aid you, and you can't barely move, so you won't be able to escape or avoid any more hits after that point. That's not even mentioning that stun mechanics are incredibly unfun and typically hated with a passion in any game they are present in. I can think of a handful of games that tried adding in stun mechanics in the past, only for the backlash from the community to be so overwhelming that it threatened to kill the game if it wasn't removed. Needless to say, I can't think of a single person who even remotely enjoys these sorts of mechanics outside of the people who are benefiting directly from their use. But what about the monster's powers? Well, let's look at Wart for our example. Wart has 3 rather simple abilities. 1 every 10-ish seconds he can leap forward, once every 40-ish seconds he can apply armor, and once every about a minute he can echolocate a rough idea of where people are. The leap is okay, as it's one of the only powers that lets you gain ground on teens in chase, but it's rather clunky and you don't have much control over it. Acid armor is functionally useless. It lasts for only a few seconds, and it takes nearly a minute before it can be used again. The only place it would be beneficial to you would be when you're under attack, but as stated before, weapons silence all of your powers, so you can't use it. You might be thinking then to simply apply it before you engage in combat, but we'll get to why that doesn't do anything in a moment. The echolocation is actually somewhat handy. It doesn't give you an exact location, but gives you a rough idea of where everyone is in relation to you, but it also takes the longest in between uses, and the timer is long enough that by the time you can actually use it, teens have had enough time to actually make all of their weapons. Oh, and you don't start the match with your powers ready to go either. You actually have to wait at the start of every game on all of your cooldowns, meaning no echolocate at the start of the game, no armor, and no leaping. Outside of the ridiculously long cooldown timers, though, powers have another drawback. You have to charge them to use. None of them are instants. If you want to use a power, you hold down the button for that power and wait about 2-ish seconds, give or take, before it activates. And during this time, your movement is slightly slower than the teens. So, Wart's leap, as an example before, you will lose ground before the leap even activates, and then you have to wait 10 or so seconds before you can leap again. Applying acid armor in chase will make you lose ground also, and by the time you make that ground back up, the armor runs out, so it almost never comes into play in combat. And we haven't even gotten to the worst of it. Let's talk about the most one-sided aspect of this game, which is hit for hit. As stated before, all the teen weapons have stun and silence mechanics, which they honestly don't even really need. A number of weapons are one-hit kill, meaning a single hit from the weapon instantly downs the monster. Some weapons like the helicopter move faster than the monster and can chase him across the map. Some weapons like the firebomb are AoE and affect a wide area of ground. And yes, if it comes anywhere near you, you will be stunned and unable to get out of its area of effect. But even lower tier weapons like the ray gun, because of the stun effect, make the monster barely able to move, meaning that following up shots is as easy as hitting the broadside of a barn. Essentially, if you are hit by basically anything as the monster, unless a teen is huffing glue, you can almost guarantee you'll lose that stigma. In contrast to this, the monster, as stated before, has to rely on melee hits, no AoE, ranged, or anything else like that, just pure melee. It takes 2 hits to down a teen, but downing a teen doesn't remove them from the game. A downed teen will be gotten back up, assuming you were lucky enough to get it down in the first place. See, the devs added yet another mechanic that hinders the monster, which is anytime you get a melee hit on a teen, you stare straight up into the sky and roar. This disorients you and gives ample time for the teen to hide on top of the speed boost they receive when they take a hit, similar to what happens in DVD. The devs themselves said that this mechanic was added to give the teens the ability to escape and to make it harder to get a follow-up hit. They said that this was to prevent tunneling. But following up a hit isn't tunneling. In no world does anyone consider a follow-up hit for a down tunneling. Tunneling is when you focus all of your attention on downing the same person over and over to the exclusion of everyone else to get that one person out completely. Following up your first hit to get one down is not tunneling. But that aside, let's say that you learn to live with it and manage to follow up your shots better so you can get downs. Even then, you'll need to get multiple downs to take out a teen. There is a limit to how many times the teens can be hit, though. You know what that number is? 8. 8 total hits per teen to out them, meaning that it'll take an average of 26 hits or more to actually win as monster, versus the 4 hits that you can take. That is fucking absurd. That isn't anything even coming close to resembling balance. Granted, it is possible to get a kill with 4 hits, or 2 downs, but this will only happen if you actually go out of your way to tunnel one person and get them down twice in a row without them healing. But even if you did do that, given the perfect conditions, you're still looking at 18 hits minimum to your 4, or roughly 3.5 times more than what you can actually take yourself. Then add on top of even that the Book of the Dead, which can be used to revive a dead teen. So even death doesn't guarantee an out. Yes, they added a Book of the Dead, which revives people from the dead that you outed from the game. And this isn't exactly unknown either. Spend any amount of time looking through the forums, and even the avid supporters of this game will readily admit to the fact that the monster is not the power role in this game's dynamic. The teens are, which is such ass-backwards game design for a 4v1 game to make the 1 weaker than the 4. Even as hated as Evolve was, they at least had a better idea of how to balance the game than this. Monster would start off weaker, but would grow stronger as the game progressed. Essentially, take the evolution element out of Evolve, and you got yourself a decent idea of how one-sided it really is. I believe the most apt description that I have heard given to this game was, quote, "It's as if you took the most salty group of DBD survivors you could think of and gave them the ability to make their version of the game where they could bully the monster endlessly." At one point, I wanted this game to succeed, but the active hostility from the community to feedback, the devs huffing glue and sniffing their own farts, the abysmal ass-backwards game design, and the barely functioning servers that constantly lose connection, has turned me off from the idea that this game could ever or should ever be played by anyone. I can't in good faith tell you to wait for the game to get better, because I honestly don't believe that it can, especially when the last 2 patches of the game further nerfed the monsters. So, this is a warning to everyone out there, do not play this game.